And they were continually devoting themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship. And today it's to the breaking of bread. It's really interesting. To the breaking of bread. Devoting themselves to sharing meals together, devoting themselves to being in one another's homes. The early disciples, once they had become believers in Jesus, and once they had been filled with the Holy Spirit, are now compelled to gather with one another, to be refreshed and encouraged. Hebrews chapter 10 says that we should not neglect the fellowship of believers, that it's in that fellowship, that time together, that we spur one another on toward love and good works. And part of that fellowship is about the breaking of bread. Now that image of breaking of bread has several deep and powerful images that are brought forth when you think about it. I mean, the breaking of bread, first of all, reminds us of the Israelites wandering in the wilderness and God providing bread, the manna in the wilderness for them to eat during their 40 years of wandering. And then Jesus is in the wilderness for 40 days, led by the Holy Spirit. He's tempted by Satan. And the very first temptation is about him turning the stones into bread so he could eat because he was very hungry. And then during Jesus' ministry, he feeds the 5,000 and again the 4,000, and he takes the little bit that they had and he blesses it, breaks it, and it's multiplied until there's leftovers of provision. In Jesus teaching us the prayer that we now call the Lord's Prayer, there's that whole statement about give us this day our daily bread. And then in Acts chapter 2, we're told that part of the fellowship, part of what they continually were devoting themselves, living out and practicing among themselves, was gathering together and breaking bread, which of course also reminds us of God through Jesus breaking the bread of the Last Supper. And so Jesus has used the image of breaking bread and the provision of daily bread as something to bring us back to the realization that it's God who provides for us. And it's especially poignant to realize that in the Garden of Eden, the devil's temptation of Eve was about what she should eat and where the provision and what provision would come from actually eating the bread rather than the one who was providing the food. Genesis chapter 1 made it clear that God had provided all the trees in the garden, that God had provided all the fruit for them to eat. It was all good and pleasing and all these things. But Satan takes what is good and corrupts it and has us trust instead of the provider of that bread. He has us trust or get attached to other things, thinking that we can feed ourselves, thinking that we can provide all we need rather than trusting in the one who provides for us. Meal times are especially intimate times, especially when we share them with friends or family. It's a time of gathering around. It's a time in certain cultures where eating a meal together is the realization that we are equals, that we are partners, that we are brothers, we're kindred. To share a meal is not just quickly running into the fast food restaurant and grabbing a burger and fries and hitting the road as if the meal is just kind of inconsequential to the rest of the event. The meal time, especially in Jesus' day, is the event where people who love each other and respect each other and take care of each other relate well to one another. There's that great account where Jesus is walking through the village and he sees the small man who is up the tree, right? Zacchaeus, who wanted to see Jesus, but because of his stature, he couldn't, so he climbs a tree. And Jesus says, Zacchaeus, come down. I'm going to your house today. I'm going to eat with you. He honors Zacchaeus by getting together with him to break bread. I encourage you this week as you think about the day of the week, or you think about the kind of the rhythm of your week. When are some times you can get together with maybe just one other friend or a neighbor or some family and break bread with each other? To linger long over a table and eating a very simple meal and having great conversation. It's interesting when we look at the science of attachment, right? When we attach ourselves to things that have meaning and purpose, it's been shown that when we gather together and we're eating with people, and if it's a hurried thing, and eating is only just kind of this necessary thing to get on with stuff, when there's the rush at a table and someone's eating food and the person they're eating with is simply doing other things, that we end up getting attached to the food rather than to the people we're with. And Jesus, when he breaks bread and he gives it to those disciples, and then likewise as we celebrate the breaking of bread in our worship services, or when we're in our homes, then also sharing a meal, let us pay special attention to the attention and affection we give to those with whom we eat. So this week I encourage you to find a time to sit down and have a meal with others, a neighbor, friends, family, your spouse, perhaps your children, and linger long. Dare to expect the Spirit of God to move in you and to grow you closer to one another. And realizing that this act of breaking bread is one of the marks of discipleship, one of the marks of being a follower of Jesus, one of the things that we continually devote ourselves to. So have a great week. Good to see you. I can't wait to be with you next week. Bye-bye.